Welcome to Grew with Portia, the podcast that uncovers the hidden treasures within grief. I'm your host, Portia the producer, and I'm inviting you to join me on a transformative journey where we will exchange laughter, of course, the best medicine of them all. Reflect on cherished memories. Remember that time that the little boy grabbed my hand instead of his mother's at the amusement park? Yikes. And of course, discover gratitude while navigating one of life's hardest challenges, loss. So get ready to grow with me, Portia the producer. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Grow with Portia. I am your host, Portia Booker, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep up with all things Grow with Portia. So one of the things that I shared recently in my Instagram and Facebook story, if you follow me, is about how it marks 9 years this year since I left my TV career in news. And one of the things that really stands out to me during that time, if you saw the picture of me, you'll see I have on my blue jacket. When I look at the picture of myself from that time period, I can see the emptiness in my face. I can see that this person didn't have a relationship with themselves. And how often is it that we are in relationships with different people, friendships, employers that reflect something that we don't want. But a lot of times the relationship starts with what we have within ourselves, right? So today, I have the honor of being joined by an individual who's no stranger to that. He is a betrayal trauma practitioner and also an intrapersonal relationship coach. So welcome to Grow with Portia, Mr. J. Mr. J, how are you today?
Thank you. I am wonderful. How are you, Portia?
Mr. J, every day is great that ends in Y. And Mr. J, when I read about what you do, you're the second person, as I mentioned, who has been a guest on Grew with Portia that focuses on betrayal, trauma, and rebuilding relationships with yourself, right? Because it starts with you. And I'm curious, Mr. J, when you think about all the different seasons in your life to lead up to where you are today, what part of that journey do you want to hold on to and honor? And what do you want people to recognize and know about the man who was then and who is now?
Well, thank you. Very good question. And if you ask me that 20 minutes from now, I'll have a different answer because I always say we're far more than human beings. We're human evolvements. We are certainly, we're not the same person today than we were months ago, a year ago. We're not going to be the same person today, a couple of years down the road. We are ever evolving, which is why, and I don't want to digress too much, which is why I say all the time, especially in marriages and long-term relationships, you got to continuously build bridges to each other, because if not, life has a way of just tearing couples apart. Not only that, you have to continuously get to know who you are. My standards, my boundaries, my interest, so much of me is completely different today than it was just a mere few years ago. And my spouse, who I've been now with 24 years, we constantly have to build those bridges to one another so we can, because what happens is a lot of times life gets busy. You get your job and then you got kids and then you go to, and everybody wants more out of you. You wake up in the morning and you go to work and your boss wants more out of you. And then your kids come home from school and they want more out of you. And then you go to church on Sunday and your pastor wants more. It's like, oh my, you're stretched thin. And then what happens, fast forward 20 years, you're sitting on the couch with your significant other, your spouse, your partner, looking at each other when the kids are gone saying, who are you? Because you didn't really, you haven't built those bridges. So I say all that to circle back to your question and say, I have to say it's all encompassing. And I will say this, I say all encompassing proudly, because even though I've been through some pretty horrific events, I always say it's very hard to love yourself when you hate the things that made you who you are.
That's deep, and it's true. I mean, and I love how you really honed in on the importance of taking the time to slow down, right? Because you're right. We get pulled in so many directions every day, right? With social media now, if you've got kids, you're trying to maintain friendships, if you're trying to also start a new hobby, right? So
Hmm.
you're being pulled in so many directions, and the bridges can sometimes get weaker, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say, speaking of social media, before COVID, I would go around and talk to various schools. And the research that I did was, do you know the average teen spends about 9 hours on social media? That's 9
Wow.
hours that they're disengaged from themselves, disengaged from the world around them, disengaged from family. And it's interesting because nowadays, with all of the technological advances, which are great in some ways, but really what it does is, certainly, technology is great in a lot of ways because it brings people that are far near, but sadly, it also brings people that are near far. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have people over for dinner or around the holidays. Everybody comes over and it starts with a big hug and I miss you and I love you. How are things? Half an hour later, everybody's in the living room doing their own thing, scrolling social media, not even paying attention. So we can get lost in that whole social media thing. And then what happens is we lose ourselves. We don't even know who we are. And then how in the world are you going to give yourself to other people or present yourself to other people? Because, you don't need. Social media is wonderful, but you really have to ensure that you are using social media and not social media is not using you.
But okay, that part. Because every day you're flooded and bombarded with difference of opinions. I always love I call it the when you're pulling your blinds at home when you're about to go to bed at night. To me, social media is that way. The up and down, the up and down. 1 minute you'll see the cute little cat videos, then you'll see somebody was diagnosed with cancer. Then you'll see somebody got married. Then you'll see somebody
Yeah,
hit the lottery. Then you'll see somebody die. It's a pendulum of so much stuff,
it is.
right?
It is. And our brains were never meant for the technology that we have today. I mean, if you go back to hunter-gatherer days, I mean, you take a typical male, female. The male went out and hunted. That was his job.
Right.
And the female stayed and took care of the kids and cooked. We didn't have the 6 trillion responsibilities that we have today. And on top of that, we like to numb, distract, avoid, cope with stress by scrolling through social media. And then what happens is our remote controls, our brains become remotely controlled because really that algorithm really starts to take over. And like I said before, instead of us being in control of social media is in control of us because we're always searching for that next fix.
I'm going to segue a little bit, Mr. J, because one of the things I know you talk about is how the relationships that we have with others starts from us, right? The relationship that we have with ourselves. And I'm curious, considering that so many young people are spending 9 hours on social media every day, I'm sure there's probably some adults who do that while they're at work.
Oh yeah.
How can people start to build a somewhat healthy relationship with social media? Because it's not going anywhere, right? A lot of us doom scroll throughout the. When I heard doom scrolling, I started laughing the first time.
Hmm.
But how can we start to build a relationship of some sort where we're not losing ourselves, where we're not sitting on the couch in 10 years like, who are you again? Saying that to our kids, saying that to our spouse and everybody around us.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, it's a very good question, Portia, but it's hard to answer that because unfortunately, we live in a day and age where the majority of us need social media.
Mm-hmm.
For example, for our jobs, for our news, for our connections, to keep in touch. So it's very easy for me to say, well, you got to limit yourself to 2 hours every 4 hours. I mean, not everybody can do that. I mean, it's got to be,
Right.
I will tell you something. Everything in everything in moderation, really, for the most part. And you have to tell yourself, I'm gonna lie in bed and I'm gonna give myself 45 minutes. Absolutely. Doom scroll and whatever you fix you need, you do you. But after 45 minutes, I have to be in control and say I'm done, you know? And I think that's what happens is that people just get caught in this loop. And I mean, come on, we've all done it. I'll be the first one to raise my hand. I get on social media and say, I just want to check out the latest A, B, or C. 6 hours later, I'm like, oh my God, my kids are starving. That's half a joke, but I'm saying the time can fly. So but you really do need to, okay, I'm gonna check my email, but give myself 5 minutes. You really have to really be mindful of it, because I'm telling you something, addiction is simply rewiring the brain, and social media can become our next addiction. As a matter of fact, it probably is for the majority of us.
Yeah. I'd be curious as far as the studies within the last since COVID around addiction and social media. I'd be curious to see that at some point. And you're right. I think mindfulness, we talk about it, right? But what does that really look like for most of us? Are we aware that we've spent 6 hours on social media when it's now dark outside? You haven't ate since noon. You got laundry piled up. You might have left the water running in the bathroom. I mean, just different absent minded things. And I'm glad you really reinforced that, Mr. J, about being mindful in moderation. I mean, I set a timer when I'm working a lot of times, especially if I'm editing Group Portia or some of my other client shows. I set a timer for 30 minutes where I have to get up, take a walk, take a break, give myself that breathing room because it's so easy, which is crazy and sad. It's so easy to fall into a pattern of doom scrolling, looking at this platform, looking at that platform, looking at emails instead of just pulling back and taking a break.
Yeah. And listen, that's not even to mention, I forgot what year it was, but I think there was, it could have been 2023, 24, I'm not sure. There were more online engagements than there were in person.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
probably.
how many times, and again, I'll raise my hand, I'm not going to sit here and think I'm a saint. How many times is our partner, spouse, significant other talking to us and we're no, no eye contact, even my kids. I mean, and speaking of kids, this is where it really gets dicey and hairy, because number one, a child's brain is not even formally formed, especially a male. Well, I don't want to get on that. Listen, I'm a guy, but we're all tall children. Okay, we don't grow up until we're in our 40s or 50s, but that's a whole nother show. But I fall short of this too. I'll be in the middle of looking at social media. My kids will come up to me, and I want to finish this last 3 seconds of a video, whatever, and I don't even give my kids eye contact. And I mean, I eventually do. And what message does that send? That whatever you're watching is more important than what I have to say? I mean, this really screws kids up. And last thing I'll tell you about social media is I was just reading a study where they said different parts of our brain get associated with different things. Like, for an example, if I hand you a hammer right now, okay, sure, you can do some things with a hammer. You can itch your back with it if you want. You could, I mean, there's things you can, but what's the first thing you think about is, oh, what am I pounding with a nail? That's what you, so now they're giving kids all these computers in school, so they want them to learn on computers, which is great, fine and dandy. But when kids come into this world understanding that computer is a thing for entertainment, then that part of their brain that's of entertainment gets engaged, not the learning part of the brain. So many studies are coming off on, listen, this is why you gotta use technology and not let technology, use you. But I have no idea how we got on this topic when I'm a betrayal
That's
trauma practitioner.
but I think it's relevant though, Mr. J, because there's adults, right? There's the new generation that's coming up where that's what they know. Me and my boyfriend were 8 years apart. And even though we're both millennial, one of the things that came up during a conversation a couple weeks ago with friends was how our generation knows how to fix our computers, going into the back, just simple. I can do simple stuff. But
Mhm.
this newer generation, they don't know that because, as you've just mentioned, their brain is wired entertainment,
Yeah.
social media, generation like. There was a good documentary, I think it's called Generation Like, that talks
Hmm.
about social media
Hmm.
and young people and mental health. And so I think it's relevant, right? And that relationship component, Mr. J.
Absolutely. Because listen, you and I as adults, we can look at the Joneses across the street and see how they're posting vacation pictures and desserts, and we can be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Real life is what happens in between posting pictures, right? But you take the average teenager and they're like, seeing makeup and haircuts and vacations, and they're thinking, I want that life. So it's very detrimental. I have my son's going on 15 next month. He still doesn't have a phone. I mean, obviously, I let him get on social media. I don't want him to, be completely clueless and ignorant. But I don't let him have a phone because I know that it could become very addictive very quickly. And nope, studies come first.
Well, I mean, you're not making him Flintstone archaic, but at the same time, you're still setting that foundation of I want you to put your studies first. Entertainment can come later. I don't want you constantly spending a lot of time here because I
Yeah,
don't want it to affect your confidence,
yeah,
different things. So I respect that. I
yeah.
mean, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 15 or 16. And back then, you figure I had a flip phone. Remember the Razors? That was the
Oh,
first phone I
oh
had.
yeah, oh yeah.
You
I had a
know,
flip phone. I thought I was cool walking down the mall with it. But the other thing too I want to tell you is that kids nowadays, like especially with my field, I'm very much into interpersonal, relationships and interaction and stuff. And you lose out on a lot of. I think we're created for human interaction, human touch, human experiences. And when you've got your face in a phone for 20 hours a day, you're losing kids nowadays, they don't know how to interact with each other. So we're losing a very important component to just being human existence 101. So we're moving into some scary times, some very good times in terms of like advances, but some very scary times also in terms of like human development.
yeah, there's a book I think that talks about I think it's by Jean Twenge, I think is her name, where it talks about how some parents have been the recipients of their kids' job applications recently because the kids don't know how to do them, or that the parents have to be the responsible one. And I'm like, what in the world? So I get it. And I think technology and social media have brought us together all over the world. But at the same time, there needs to be some checks and balances, which have not been there. And then let's not even get on the subject of AI and social media. And we're not going to go there because that's
Yeah.
for a whole
Well, I'll
nother.
tell you what, I'll segue now and talk about social media and in my field. One of the dangers with social media, and I want to be very careful with my words, is that it's extremely easy to get into affairs, cheating, betrayal,
Yes.
because of technology. And that's so coming back to what I do, I work with, I mean, really just betrayal trauma can happen to in many different forms. I will say 90% of the clients I work with are working on some kind of affair or something. But Portia, I don't have to tell you, we live in a digitized age where you want a shirt, you go to Amazon and the next day you got a shirt. You want a meal, you throw it in the microwave, and within 10 minutes, you got a meal. You want a piece of butt, download an app, and within 2 minutes, you got somebody pulling up your driveway. It's very easy to get into a infidelity, cheating, betrayal. So I'm seeing a lot of social media betrayal in my field.
Mm. And I mean, and it's sad that social media has made it that easily accessible, right? And that immediate gratification that people were on. I describe it as the McDonald's line analogy,
Yep. Yep.
right? Because
Absolutely.
you stand in. I haven't ate McDonald's in years. The only thing if I do go is I get coffee. That's the only thing. I don't eat none of the food. But I mean, you go, you stand in the line. Now I don't even think they really have cashiers in there anymore. I think you order from the kiosk thingy
Yeah.
and you get your food and you keep going.
Yeah.
Where it's I think that's the sad part, that things are so easily accessible where you don't have to work as hard to get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on top of that, there was another study that was done where our brains don't like options. Like one or
Mm,
two options is fine. And now it's like, oh my God, I mean, come on, you go to the movie and listen, I love options. I do, but I think if I never knew about all these options, I would be fine. It's like, you go up to the movie theater and you're like, well, here's some M&Ms. You want them with nuts, without nuts? You want them crunchy? You want them with a bop upside your head? You want them orange? It's like, come on, dude, just give me some M&Ms. Like, holy cow. So, and that's what social media does too. It's great in a lot of ways. It gives us options, but again, it's overstimulating for our minds, social media.
yeah, you're overstimulated. It causes overwhelm because you want simple peanut M&Ms. I don't want Coca-Cola flavored M&Ms.
Yeah.
I don't want M&Ms that look like Butterfingers.
Dipped in coconut. Yeah, absolutely.
You just want something simple. And I think to bring things kind of back home, I think when it comes to social media, when it comes to relationships, I think it's important to be intentional, right? Like me and my boyfriend, we met at a concert. That's how we met. So those of you who never knew our love story, that's how we met. We met at a concert.
Which
And
concert was it?
Disturbed.
Oh.
Down with the sickness 25 years. But it's but the thing of it is, like, to your point, I think sometimes even in relationships for people, even though they're happy, they're still seeking more. And it's important to remind yourself of being grateful for what you have. Because I have to do that daily. Like, I'm grateful for the relationship that I have, the things that we do, the things that we have in common. And even on social media, luckily, my business is 90% word of mouth. But I think it's still intentional. I think that's the key word here with relationships, with social media, with everything, is that intentionality piece and being mindful. Because it's so easy to get overstimulated, overwhelmed, and just not, and being kind of paralyzed, I think, too, because you're so bombarded every day,
Right.
right? Mr. J, this has been a great conversation. I never knew where this was going to go, but I just love it. We're going to be wrapping up here soon. But before we conclude, Mr. J, if our audience wants to connect with you, if you have any upcoming talks or a workshop that they can attend, please let our audience know how they can connect with you, and we'll include that in the show notes.
I'm also, listen, I just want to say real quick, I have the easiest site on the planet, I think, mrjrelationshipcoach.com. But even if people don't want to see me, talk to me, hear from me, I have a lot of free resources on my website. So just come there. I got lots of videos, interviews, podcasts, all kinds of stuff on relationships, trauma, betrayal trauma, communication techniques, just things that really make living together and interacting with other people more fluent. So, mrjrelationshipcoach.com.
So there you go, everybody. MrJRelationshipCoach.com. You can also probably just do a Google search as well. You know, Google is your friend, and AI will bring up almost everything about people these days. I mean, they're almost better than detectives, but I'm not going to go there. Well, everybody, that was Mr. J, your betrayal trauma practitioner that you heard from today on this episode of Grew with Portia. And that concludes our conversation for today. And until next time, everybody, peace and hair grease, everyone.